Hottest political story in the capital city and around the state. House Speaker Ray Sansom, for all intents and purposes, resigns. Larry Creedle takes his place. For how long? We'll talk about that with Josh Hafenbrack of the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. What a shocker, or not?
Big shocker, yeah. Definitely the abrupt nature of it. You know, the feeling was, up until a few weeks ago that he'd probably be able to hang on, as Speaker, a little wounded, but nothing that would make him step down.
So controversy, at least one grand jury investigation swirling around this private compensation college deal he's got, and money that flew to the college, and the construction of a hangar emergency operations center.
The hangar could be a central question, a $6 million hangar that closely mirrored a project that a friend and Republican contributor was seeking. So that could be a central question. Another question on the state sunshine laws that might have been breached, according to the Attorney General.
Well, tough questions here, because he didn't actually resign. He didn't use the language of resign, but recuse himself. For all intents and purposes, is he gone, or is he really still pulling the strings?
It'll be interesting. It could be somewhat awkward because he'll still be a legislator in the Florida House, but Larry Creedle will be Speaker, at least on a temporary basis. But the odds don't seem good that he'd be able to come back, especially when you consider it take a while for this process to play out.
And is Creedle going to actually be his own guy, or is he going to puppet whatever the former Speaker would want?
Well, we'll see. I mean, Creedle, talking to other Republican lawmakers, seems to be well thought of. He's a soft-spoken kind of guy. He has a sort of a laid-back style, but he seems to have a lot of respect among his colleagues.
All right, handicap it now. Ray Sansom, does he ever come back in the Speaker's office as Speaker during this 2-year period?
Probably not likely.
Certainly more to come on this story in our regular edition of PowerPlay, straight up next. The scramble continues for Florida's U.S. Senate seat. Who's in, who's out, and why? Can state regulators stop State Farm from pulling out of Florida's property market? And is redistricting reform going to be on the 2010 election ballot? All of that this week on PowerPlay with our guests, Steve Bousquet, Bureau Chief of the St. Petersburg Times, and Josh Hafenbrack, Bureau Chief of the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. This Senate race, oh my gosh, it is a political guessing game. Who's in, who's out? On the D side, though, we've definitely got State Senator Dan Gelber and Kendrick Meek. Where's the big surprise on the D side?
There isn't one, except for the fact that Alex Sink isn't interested. There's no big-name Democrat. You got Tampa Mayor Pam Iorio looking at it.
She could become the big deal.
Well, she's from I-4, an I-4 corridor candidate, a woman who's been very popular in Hillsborough County. She could change the dynamics of that race quickly.
And yet Alan Boyd, the congressman from Northwest Florida, isn't in the race, and that's somewhat of a surprise. And there are rumors that Rod Smith may get in.
Right. And so, there's no real big name. And so there's a lot of candidates who don't have very high name recognition across the state, who have geographic constituencies, but may have trouble playing to the state as a whole. And we're talking about a television state where the race is going to be $20 million.
And on the R side, only a couple of names.
That's right. This is the first Senate race in the history of Florida where everybody's in the margin of error. Everybody.
But we don't have a declared front-runner by the media pundits or by the political glitterati. Nobody seems to actually have a leg up at this point.
The one name that's surprising out there is Connie Mack IV, the congressman from Fort Myers, former state legislator. On the strength of the family name, he zooms to the top in a Quinnipiac poll, but he hasn't said if he's running or not.
Okay. Marco Rubio, where's he stand in this whole sweepstake with that generic I'm running for something website?
Former speakers tend not to do that well, and they're well known in Tallahassee, but not necessarily well known across the state. But what he has going for him is he has a big entree into South Florida and the Hispanic community, the Cuban community. He's also a very dynamic speaker, so he could do well on the stump.
North of the Palmetto Expressway, it's Marco who run.
Well, this will be something sexy to talk about almost every week in every coffee shop across the state where people care about state politics.
Rubio Gelber could be a all Miami-Dade matchup.
But the hot business issue of the week, State Farm Insurance announcing 800,000 policies of property coverage they don't want to carry anymore in Florida. Regulators react. What's going to happen?
Legislature's going to look at it. They got the Office of Insurance Regulation subpoenaing records. Charlie Crist comes out and cheers the decision, which antagonized some folks in the business community, that move.
Well, the governor is saying that basically there are a lot of insurers who have come into the state. He actually used the phrase, I think, good riddance.
Yeah, I think he said 32 have been come, but this could be a really tumultuous and dangerous political time for the governor, because you're seeing a lot of the insurance things they've done over the last couple of years boomerang. Citizens rates are going to rise again. State Farm's leaving the state, so as he gears up for re-election. A lot of these promises he made on insurance may not look so good in 2010.
And Senator Mike Fasano files this bill that would limit the drops to 2% a year of policies, which would kind of keep State Farm in the tank,
Right,
wouldn't
more of a gradual approach.
All right, well, how do you think it's going to turn out then?
Don't know, Ron. I mean, the legislature's they've got other headaches with insurance regarding the cat fund this session. So insurance is going to be a major issue.
All right, the state Supreme Court comes out with a decision blessing the language of two amendments that would completely reform redistricting in our state. What's it do politically if it makes it to the ballot?
Well, you're going to have a battle royal between the forces that want to maintain the status quo, not just the Republicans, but their allies in the business community and political folks out there. And nothing has the potential to shake up the political establishment in Florida like this, where you'd have the drawing of the lines taken away from the legislature.
And while Florida's a blue state in the presidential election, we're still in our state when it comes to congressional districting and the state legislature. How could this change?
Right. I mean, you look at a remarkable development in November. As Barack Obama was winning Florida, not a single Republican incumbent in the Florida legislature lost his or her seat. So, that just tells you, that they've been able to be very successful drawing up these districts. If you get it, Florida could be a purple state if you can redraw.
Lots of money flowing to it. We're going to go now to your respective power plays of the week. Steve?
I'm going to go with Governor Charlie Crist, and I say because he cherry-picked the most politically popular programs to spare the veto from the cuts from the legislature last week.
Okay,
I'm going
Josh.
to go with Attorney General Bill McCollum. He's been pressing prosecutors to look into and investigate potential sunshine law violations from a meeting that was called between embattled House Speaker Ray Sansom and the college president Bob Richburg here in Tallahassee. He's also been pushing hard on the Seminoles issue against Governor Crist and seems to have the ear at least of the Florida House. So Bill McCollum. And
I'll add Tom Rumberger, a Republican, and the lineup of Democrats behind that redistricting language that survived the Supreme Court review. Steve Bousquet, Josh Hafenbrack, thank you very much. For the latest political news, go to the Safety Review, and we'll see you next time on PowerPlay.